Well, ho, 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 everybody. Welcome into another episode. Last week, we talked about our three favorite games we played in 2025, where we were happy and jolly and had a good time. And now we get to be like a Scrooge and a Grinch and talk about our three least favorite video games we played in 2025. So, before we get into it, I'd like to make a little bit of a written statement. Video games are, without question, one of the most subjective forms of entertainment in the world. No matter what you think about a video game, there are no two people who will have the exact same list, whether that's for positive or negative. However, as I get older and I do more research into video games, and as I play video games regularly, it is a lot more common that people agree on the negative side of a game rather than a positive side of a game. For example, what's your favorite video game of all time? Right? It's not what I thought. It's not what I said. However, would you say that these three games probably were not the best games that came out in 2025? Well, let's get to the list and see if it's true. Coming in at the number three most disappointing game for me this year was Avowed. From the studio that made Fallout New Vegas, one of my favorite all time RPGs, I was expecting something bold, something evolved, something with that obsidian magic. Instead, what we got was another safe, cookie cutter, main picture or main character syndrome fantasy RPG that felt like it could have been released in 2010. The power fantasy genre for me is running on empty. It's really at the end of its line, probably even less than empty. And Avowed did what too many developers have done in the last 5, 10 years, which is just they played it safe. There was nothing new in this game, nothing innovative, nothing that made the world feel like it was its own identity. There was no reason to exist. It was a copy paste design of a game that we have literally seen and played hundreds of times. Meanwhile, you have games out there like, you know, the Dark Souls or Kingdom Come or Baldur's Gate 3 that really have pushed the narrative of games being challenging and building an unforgiven world that actually feels alive rather than this main character syndrome power fantasy world that I really do think people are becoming tired of. And Avowed didn't evolve. It didn't push anything forward. And that was its biggest letdown to me. I can go and replay Fallout New Vegas right now, start to finish, and feel more hooked, more engaged than anything I felt while playing Avowed. And yes, it has positive reviews and it seemed to do okay. But when you look at the predecessors of this game, when you look at what Obsidian has been able to do, I really think this game let a lot of people down, myself included. Coming in at number two is Mind's Eye. This is just going to be short and sweet because honestly, the developers don't deserve anything more than that. Mind's Eye is yet another example of developers proving or begging us to spend our hard earned money on something that they promised would be great and it didn't even live up to the expectation. But before we even talk about the gameplay, we really have to talk about the playtest and then what happened days before the game and then the day the game came out. So, really early on, there was a playtest where everybody sort of said the exact same thing. The gunplay felt pretty good, but the world felt empty and felt like a sandbox without sand. And so that's to be expected when you talk about a playtest because, well, it's a game that's supposed to just give you a little bit of a cut of what the game is supposed to be. Then, days before the game launched, several higher ups in the company left. And I said this back then, and I'll say it now. You don't leave a company right before a game launches unless you're trying to avoid the fallout of yourself. Like, you're not doing anything better for the game by you leaving the studio early. And that's exactly what happened. And then when the game was finally released, they gave out like free copies to streamers and content creators. And I remember watching this that as the content creators and streamers were playing, they actually ended up pulling their sponsorships and like revoking the access to some of these people because they didn't want to pay for the sponsorship because they knew that they had already created a dud. I mean, and then that's not even talking about the gameplay. The gameplay of this was awful at best. It was terrible. The voice acting was like AI and terrible. The game didn't know what it wanted to be. In fact, the game is completely different now than it was when it released it. And they do have a demo out, which I guess is somewhat cool if you wanted to go try it. I played it in preparation of this video just to get my feet back into it, and it's terrible. It's awful. There's nothing fun about this game, and it's just another game that they really how touted as a Grand Theft Auto killer that ended up being a terrible game. So, I mean, I guess give it a shot if you want, but I'm telling you, this was one of the worst experiences of 2025 as a whole. Now, boys and girls, we have reached the oh so loved #1 spot of my least favorite video games of 2025. And this title goes to none other than Eternal Strands. This is the worst game I played in 2025. Eternal Strands didn't just disappoint me. It annoyed me that I even spent any amount of time on it. And honestly, that hurts more than the money. The fact that I spent time playing this game hurt more than the fact that I actually bought it. Everything about it just felt like a huge waste of time. The voice acting, again, much like Mind's Eye, I'm pretty sure it was AI, or at least there was a very repetitive feeling to it. The combat was repetitive to the point of insanity, not to where like I'm not talking about like your character's movement is the same. I mean, every enemy you fight has like the same move set and the same feeling and the same. It's like you're just fighting a different skinned wolf or a different skinned bird. And it just felt terrible. Nothing evolved, nothing escalated, nothing ever got better. This was such a dud. Now, I will say, there was one part of this game that was not awful, and that's the boss battles. Those were actually fun sometimes, even challenging until you got the hang of it and it was very predictable. Everything about this game was just boring. It was like the game ran and you could play it. So it wasn't like Mind's Eye where the game was unplayable at release. This game was a game. It was a video game, but it was just boring and terrible and it just felt like a complete waste of my time, to the point where I even actually tried to warn other friends who I saw were interested in this game to like, don't waste your time with it. In preparation for this video, I went back and I played a little bit of a bunch of other games that I played this year just to sort of make sure that my list was accurate. This wasn't my original list, but I knew that I know all three of these games were really close on it. But I just refused to go back and play Eternal Strands. I just, there was nothing about this game that you could do to get me to come back. You couldn't pay me. I would not go back to this boring, disappointing mess. And again, like I said from the start, these are my least favorite games. Someone absolutely loved this game. And there are people out there that really felt like this was one of the better games of the year. However, that's not me. And I'd be willing to bet there's a lot more people who think like me than someone who thinks this is one of the best games. But I genuinely would like to know, everybody, what is your favorite game this year or least favorite game of this year? What are the games that you really were like, wow, what a waste of time and money? So those are my three most disappointing games of this year. There were a lot of messy games this year. There were a lot of disappointments. There were a lot of duds and there was a plethora of mids. But these three really take the cake for the worst games out there that were me. And that's what the whole point of gaming is. It's personality. It's personal. Your taste is your taste. My taste is mine. And that's what makes video games so great. We can all have wildly different experiences with the same titles. If you've played any of these three games, I would really like to know what your opinion was of them down in the comments down below. Would you have said something like these are one of the worst games you've played? Have you played all three of these games? And would you have rated them in this order? If not, let me know what your top three most disappointing games were of the year, and I'll read those comments as soon as you type them. Okay, bye-bye.